Welcome to the podcast that's dedicated to helping business owners prepare their business for exit so that when the time comes, they can maximize value and exit on their own terms. This is the Exit Insights podcast, and it's presented by Succession Plus. I'm Daryl Bates-Brownsword, and today I'm talking to Pete Caltabiano from C Suite Impact CFOs. I've known Pete a few years personally, and Pete has started a practice, a few years ago now, Pete, and you're covering the mainland USA. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. We have national coverage around the United States.
Okay.
Based in New York City, though.
You're based out of New York, and why don't you give us a little bit of an overview of C Suite, what C Suite cover?
Yeah, so C Suite just brings that element of what I like to refer as the gig worker to the small to mid-size, business owner, and we focus on working with entrepreneurs and helping them grow their business and prepare for an exit at some point, down the road.
And when you say mid-market SME type businesses, what sort of size businesses do they need to get to when they're ready to work with someone like yourself? Or one of your team?
Yeah, sure. So typically we look to work with companies between 5 million and 100 million in revenue. Our sweet spot probably falls into 10 to 25 million in revenue with companies that are owner managed and high growth businesses.
Yep. And any particular industries get more benefit than others?
I would say we're pretty industry agnostic. I mean, with the talent we have on the team, we cover over 40 different industries, but we're heavy in manufacturing, heavy in construction, a lot of healthcare, a lot of owner managed businesses that you probably wouldn't recognize the name because they're small to mid-sized enterprises.
Okay, so we're talking to the podcast guests. SME business owners, they're pretty much based in the US, UK, and Australia is where the audience tends to be. They're going to be that growing enterprise. They're going to be in that same sweet spot. So if some of the audience is looking at it and going, hey, look, I'm growing my business. Yeah, I've got budgets in place. I've got financial reports that I get every month. I've got a management accountant in the business who's preparing those reports for me every month. Yeah, I can see that I'm tracking on my budget. What's a CFO going to bring that their management accountant or their CPA is not already doing in the business?
Well, I mean, if you look at what a CPA does, they're really there to help prepare you to get your taxes filed. And they're really, their primary focus is tax strategy, where a CFO is more about the vision of the business and making that vision a reality. So we'll work with our clients to help understand what the vision is and then really just make that a reality by using the data that's being provided through that financial reporting that you mentioned. And that's really the difference between what a CFO brings to the table and what a CPA brings to the table. I would say that we don't really get into doing taxes. However, all of our CFOs have a CPA qualification. So they're really there for helping with tax strategy and working hand in hand with what a CPA firm would do for a business. And by doing so, we're able to streamline information to CPA firms and really make it a lot more cost effective because they know they're getting clean information that they can use in order to file their taxes. And the U.S. tax system can be very complicated. So having that kind of experience and being able to work with a tax partner really helps enhance that for the small business owner.
Okay, so we're growing from just covering our compliance base and from working with the CPA. We've got our business plan in place. We've got a vision. We've got this big idea of what we want to achieve in our business, and sometimes it's cultural, sometimes it's commercial, but we've got an idea of the destination we want to get our business to. Are you saying that the role of working with one of your guys will do is go, well, let's do the financial modeling of what's required financially of what we have to do to get you from where you are to where you want to be?
Yeah, I mean, that's so important that financial modeling is not only in place, but it's squeaky clean and being used to make decisions based on math. That's really, I think, the big difference. A lot of entrepreneurs make decisions based on their gut, and that's okay. I believe in gut instinct, but being able to put math behind that decision making process is so important. And being able to have a strategic partner in a CFO to help you with those decisions and say, hey, here's what the numbers are telling us. This is what our cash flow projection looks like based on historical data. Here's what our sales projections look like out to the future. How are we going to use that to better run the business and be ready for anything that might be waiting for us down the road? So it's not just what's right in front of your windshield, but what's further down the highway.
Yeah. So we can afford to invest in this strategy and that strategy, and if we're going to do an acquisition, because what this podcast is all about is going, how do we prepare the business? What's the journey from, hey, I decide I want to exit my business to actually having that exit? We're hearing more and more that CFOs make that journey a whole lot easier. And we know from experience that working with a business that has a CFO, everything just goes a whole lot smoother. So from your perspective, Pete, when that business owner, let's say they don't have a CFO in their business already, or a part-time C-suite CFO, let's say they've gone, hey, look, I want to get out of my business in 3 years' time. I've had some great growth over the last 3, 5, 10 years, whatever it is, and the business is stable and growing and sustainable. I now want to think about getting out of the business. What's the CFO going to do? Given that I've been able to do everything I have, with the team I've got, what's the CFO going to do specifically now that I'm on that exit planning path?
Yeah, and that's really important, Daryl, because I think, from my experience and what we've seen, what's going on out there with potential buyers, they're going to want to know, it's going to come down to the people. Are the people that are in place, so your executive team, your leadership team, are they in the right seats? Do they know their roles? Or do they have that institutional or that tribal knowledge that's going to help for the transition and make the transition go smoothly? That coupled with really good, clean, squeaky clean financials that is going to always be looked at. The due diligence phase is really where the CFO is going to weigh in and say, you'd be able to answer any kind of questions that a potential buyer is going to see in those numbers, and be able to not only answer those questions, but tell the story behind the numbers. Because the numbers, we don't believe the numbers, they may be wrong, but, if they're incorrect, what's driving that? There's usually something behind the numbers that tells a story as to why they might not be accurate. So for a strategic CFO, it's important that they're able to understand that and be able to tell that to the potential buyer and explain that to the potential buyer in what the numbers are telling them and what they're seeing. Because, you can look at a number, but there's always a lot more behind that number and what's driving a number in any kind of financial reports.
Yeah. So what business owners need to be aware of, if they've never sold a business, they've never exited a business before, that what they're selling, when the buyers are looking to acquire the business, what they're looking for is, what's the likelihood of the historic revenues continuing under new ownership? And we want to know what the risk is to those revenues. So a CFO is going to provide all the mathematical, as you say, the numbers analysis, and provide the historic trend, and therefore project that moving forward, and provide you with all the systems and information that will give reassurance and confidence around those projections. And a potential buyer is going to come in and ask a whole lot of uncomfortable questions just because they want to have some confidence around those numbers and the analysis that they're seeing. And a CFO is the best person to have on your team to provide that confidence. And that's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. CFOs are great at understanding the numbers and being able to help, a potential buyer understand what those numbers are telling us. They're really there to answer the questions behind the detail behind the information, and for those questions that are going to come up. Because when that due diligence starts, they're going to dig into your business and they're going to really want to understand what's going on. you mentioned, risk. There's always going to be risk, and a potential buyer understands that. But as long as the reward outweighs the risk,
Yeah.
based on what the CFO is providing information wise, and they're seeing that leadership team that's also a part of that and has at least a high level understanding of the numbers, they're going to really, that's going to open their eyes up to, hey, you know what, this is a good solid business and has a lot of potential, and it's going to open up those buying signs that we want to see when you're selling a business.
Okay, so we've got our CFO providing all of the numbers and all of the reassurance, and they're the person with the skills that's going to fulfill all the due diligence requirements and obligations that a buyer is looking for. Now, what else is a buyer looking for, Pete? When potential buyers start sniffing around at your business, what's the first information they want? What are they looking for to, I guess, engage them to go, hey, look, I need to really find out, I need to do some deeper analysis on this business. This looks like a good opportunity worth investigating more.
Yeah, I think for us, what we've seen is a lot of buyers, when, the camel sticks its nose under the tent, they're going to want to look at things like, a perfect example is, things like bank loans. Are those bank loans, in within the covenants, or are there any violations, and what's the reason for the violations? So it's the things that, you get a working line of credit from a bank, you sign off on it, you got the money, you're using it to operate the business, but there's covenants that come with it. And a lot of times, you just sign off on the agreement and you never think about it again. And from what we've seen with a lot of clients, they're not always compliant with what is in the covenants. So being able to, and they're going to look at that. They're going to look at any outstanding balances you have, and going to want to understand those and what that money's being spent on. And it's just having a watchful set of eyes on your cash flow and how the cash flow is being used and projected out into the future. So those cash flow projections are really important too. So they're going to want to see things like cash forecasts, budgets, and again, how do the people, how are they connected to that information, and are they dialed in? Any good or solid executive leadership team is going to also, need to be a part of that, and that's what a buyer is going to be looking for.
Okay. And how do the buyers feel about seeing that the business has a fractional CFO as part of the exec team?
Well, I think, a lot of buyers, often have fractional CFOs of their own doing the same type of work in the background. So they do see it as a huge benefit, because they know that they've got an experienced person that understands the numbers, understands, what's going to happen or what potentially could happen in the future. And they're looking forward, so it's really just that forward look that the buyers really want to be able to see, that it's not just about what's happening today, but what are any pitfalls that could be out there further down the road that we want to at least be ready for or understand could be coming our way if a purchase is made.
Yeah. And Pete, I think you said you've got a whole range of CFOs in your team. Using their collective knowledge and experience, are you seeing any trends or patterns that prospective buyers are looking for at the moment? Do you collect that sort of intelligence?
Yeah, we sure do. I mean, we have a deal makers team that's part of C Suite Impact, and they do a lot on the buy sell side. And the patterns we're seeing from buyers is, what's the risk reward? What is this business sustainable? Can we grow it? Does the culture fit? Because we know how important culture is. Does the culture fit with my business that I'm going to be merging it into? And think about culture. It's the engine of any successful company. So they're gonna want that stuff that's not tangible, that you can't touch and you can't feel, but you can see it. So being able to understand the culture of the business and how it's going to, fit into the culture of the existing business that it's being merged into. I mean, that we see a lot. And the time that's spent on evaluating the executive team is probably as much time they spend on that evaluation as they do on the time they spend in looking into the reporting in the finance function that's being generated by the bookkeepers, the controllers, and being signed off on by the CFO.
Yeah. We're seeing a pattern now, and people are asking us to get involved in doing a cultural due diligence. So they're doing the financial, the commercial due diligence, so that the tangible side of things, and they're saying, yeah, the intangibles, intangible assets, one of the main ones is culture. Let's do an assessment on that. Let's do some due diligence around the culture to make sure that it is a fit. Because as you and I both know, if you're not part of the right culture, you need that culture to be consistent and clean across the whole organization. And it's pretty obvious when something doesn't fit into that culture.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll jump out. It'll be the first thing that jumps out. So your team's got to be just as ready for the exit as you are. And if they're not, it will be an obstacle for your business and for it being for the transaction to happen.
And from your client's perspective, Peter, most of these business owners, it's the first time they've ever sold a business. They've often been running this business. They've been master of the business, controlling it for I don't know, between 5 and 30, even longer years. What are some of the concerns or even fears that they've got when they decide that they need to or are ready to start transitioning out of the business and want to have an exit and hopefully a nice sale day? But what are some of the fears and concerns that you need to overcome with them? Or is it just plain sailing?
Yeah, it's never smooth sailing. I wish it was that easy, Daryl. But no, it's I think the big thing is just letting go. This is very personal to them.
Yeah.
It's just as much a part of their family as their immediate family is. And being able to let go, I think, is probably one of the biggest challenges. And what we see with clients that we're working with is they have all that institutional knowledge and it sits with them. They're usually the sales leader and they run sales. And then they get pulled back into the finance function, which, they usually don't have the skill set for that. And that's okay. They started a business because they had a passion for what it is they're doing. Or it's, the next generation that's taken over and the generation after that. But a potential, someone that's selling their business, it's very personal to them. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges we have is saying, look, you can't make this personal. I know it's easier said than done, but it will be a challenge until you get comfortable with, being able to open up the curtain and see what the wizard is doing behind that curtain, and not being afraid to stand in front of everything that a potential buyer is going to be looking at. So it's just kind of letting their guard down to a certain degree. And again, that strategic CFO is there to hold their hand and say, hey, it's okay. This has got to happen in order for this transaction to take place.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be there by your side to ensure that, this is going to go smoothly.
Yeah, they're used to keeping everything close to their chest, aren't they? And not letting anyone in and confidential because it's a ferociously competitive environment out there.
Yeah, it's not only it's a competitive environment, but again, I can't reiterate how personal it is to them. It's almost like it's one of their children, and it's almost like, okay, now I'm giving my daughter away because she's getting married, and it's kind of that intense at times.
And have you got any tips for business owners that are struggling with this?
Yeah, I think trust who you're working with, trust your team. Understand that that if your executive team is doing what they should be, and you trust them to be able to help bring you to exit based on that tribal knowledge they're going to have and the tribal knowledge the CFO is going to have. Just put your trust in them and do your best to not make it personal. I mean, that's probably not going to happen, but just in the background, know that you've got a support team behind you that's going to be there to guide you through this. Because, to your point, most businesses, it's the first time they've ever sold.
Yeah.
But for a CFO, it's almost, part of everyday life for them.
Yeah.
So it's not as intense or intense at all for the CFO. Yeah, is it a lot of work? Absolutely. But, a true strategic CFO should have already done this enough times that they know what's gonna be an obstacle and what's gonna be a problem, and they're gonna be there to help you overcome it. So just put your faith in the people you've put in place and you've spent a number of years trusting and working with to be able to support you as you go through this.
Yeah. So we get that right team around us, start with the CFO, and then we get the right legal guy and exit planning advisor and financial planning as well and tax. So it really is more than one profession, isn't it? And we need that team, as you say, of skill sets to take me through what's going to be in all likelihood the biggest financial transaction in the business owner's life. So they've decided that they're going to start getting ready to exit the business. They've engaged a CFO. What should they focus on next as a business? One of your clients. What are the things they should focus on? And I guess while we're focusing on the things that they should be considering, I guess it's also worth exploring what they shouldn't be doing. If I can ask you that double-ended question.
Yeah, absolutely. So what they should be doing is, a very comprehensive and look back audit of their last 3 years' financials and tax returns. And then also that evaluation of the executive team. Is everybody in the right seat in the right place on the bus?
Yeah.
And are they, in the best possible place to help make a successful transaction? And then, I can't reiterate how important that is, but, that goes hand in hand with, your financial reporting and that data, and then how that data is being used.
The message that I think's really coming through from what you're sharing here, Peter, is the numbers are part of the story, but if you just present the numbers on a spreadsheet, a spreadsheet is dull on its own. The numbers form the history of the numbers and the trend of the numbers form a story, and it's important to tell that story rather than just deliver the spreadsheet is kind of what I'm hearing here, so that people know we all buy into a story, don't we? And if we just present the spreadsheet, it's dull and it's like a bank statement, but there's always a story behind the bank statement of the fun and enjoyment we had of what we spent our money on that month and what the money that's come in and what have you. So it's what I'm hearing is the story from your guys. Is that something you really work towards?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only do we work towards it, but we help, tell the story and help that potential buyer understand what this business is all about and why this is a good investment opportunity for you. And if you're able to do that, you're going to have a successful exit. And with a CFO, it's important that they're great communicators. They often get a bad reputation as just this person that's going to sit in an office and you're going to feed them spreadsheets and they're going to spit out responses, and that's not what a good CFO should be doing. They should be able to communicate clearly, and if they're able to communicate and tell that story clearly, it's going to make that transaction go that much more smoothly.
Okay. And the pitfalls, I think we skipped over. What are some of the pitfalls
Yeah, when
to
you get to the
avoid?
pitfalls, I think that, the biggest pitfall that we see with a potential client selling their business, goes back to some of the things we've been talking about. It's it's letting their guard down, and being able to let someone else, an outsider, a stranger, come into their business, and just start looking at everything and having questions about everything they see. Going back to outstanding loans, bank lines of credit, the executive team, who they are and what they bring to the table. Be comfortable in opening up yourself and your business to that potential buyer. And oftentimes they're not comfortable doing that because they feel like it's an outsider coming in, which it is. um, but trying to really find weak spots in the business, and that's what they're doing. They're trying to find the weak spots in the business, and then that's okay. There's going to be some weak spots. No transaction's going to be perfect, squeaky clean. But just being comfortable with that and putting trust in your team to be able to help support you in that. And once they're able to overcome that obstacle, it makes the transaction that much easier.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm hearing between the lines again there is the your CFO coming in. Yes, they're an outsider, but they're an outsider sitting on the same side of the desk as you. So they're going to make you uncomfortable. They're going to be the first person that's going to take you through a whole lot of questions in preparation, and you're going to get uncomfortable because you're not going to like all the questions they're going to ask. But this won't be the last time you're asked those questions. And when due diligence does come, someone's not going to be sensitive in the way they ask you those questions. They're just going to ask those questions straight out, and they're not going to care if you're going to be offended because they just want the answers and they just want the story rather than the attachment to the story, I guess. So if you can rehearse this and learn and desensitize somewhat, because business is personal, if we can desensitize ourselves, having that CFO is going to be a great training person so that when we go through it for real, we're not going to get offended. We're going to be totally, or maybe more comfortable, and perhaps never be totally comfortable, but more comfortable with the questions and being grilled, and therefore get through that journey with a really good positive outcome, not just for us as the sellers, but for the acquirers as well.
Yeah. The only caveat I would add to that, Daryl, is I wouldn't, really, our CFOs aren't really seen as outsiders because we embed ourselves in the business and we become the accounting and finance function. It's more, the buyer that's the outsider. So if you have a fractional or part-time CFO in your business, they should already be considered, even though they're considered maybe a consultant. They become a part of the team, so they spend, personal time with their clients. They go to, bar mitzvahs, they go to weddings, they go to funerals, they do all those things just as if it was a full-time, person within the business. I would just say, the CFO shouldn't be felt like or seen as an outsider once they're engaged, when we're working with a client. It's more so the buyer's coming in that's the outsider and asking all these difficult questions.
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of relationship with your CFO because that person is part of the business and embedded in it, that shouldn't be an obstacle. And even for the potential buyer, because potential buyers are working with a lot of fractional CFO firms as well for their own due diligence, and for the questions that need to be asked that maybe the buyer himself or herself wouldn't know, but their CFO would know to ask the right questions.
Yeah, it's not when they ask the questions, it's not personal. They just want to know the information, don't they? They've got a job to do. So
it's just an information gathering exercise. If you look at it that way, it makes it all that much easier.
Yeah. And as you say, your CFOs are sat on the same side of the desk as their clients. So they're seeing it from that perspective and presenting the story from that perspective. Thanks for that clarification.
That's absolutely right.
Pete, look, you've shared a whole lot with us and just that strategic overview that the CFO brings from the numbers, bringing the numbers to life, I guess is what you're saying, to present a story for the history of the business so that it can be seen in its best light. Alongside of that, or on top of that, so what's the one key message that we've shared today that you want to make sure that listeners who are starting to think about preparing their business or starting to think that they want to exit their business in the next 3 to 5 years, what's the key message you want them to hear from you today?
So I think for me, the key message is start building your business to exit today. It should be part of your vision. And it should be something that you are prepared for now rather than later, because you're not going to just say, hey, I want to sell my business and it's going to happen in the next week. It does take some time.
Yeah.
So prepare today, make it part of your vision, and make sure that, when the time comes, everything that we've been talking about today, when it comes to your financials and your executive team and everything that's going to come your way when due diligence starts, you're ready for it. Because we believe at C Suite Impact CFO, any business that's built and run to exit tomorrow usually means it's a well-run business, a sustainable business, and a business someone's is going to be attracted to buying, and you're going to have more than one potential buyer, and that's a great place to be in. So it's a matter of being ready today and building to exit today, and not and not wavering off that. Once you've decided, I'm going to exit in 3 years, it needs to be part of your everyday activities, and something that it comes across your desk and you're discussing openly with your team.
Okay. So get exit ready, because that way, if you are exit ready well in advance, even if you don't have a specific plan date in place, if you do get offers, you're then going to be able to approach those from the front foot rather than a point of reacting and being on the back foot, which means that if it is a good deal, you've got half a chance of it proceeding rather than it falling over because you're not able to respond quick enough to get the information that they're looking for.
Absolutely right. If you're more proactive today, it's going to only help you in the future for preparing for your exit.
Brilliant. Hey, Peter, thanks for sharing your thoughts with us from C Suite Impact today and all of your experience in providing fractional CFOs to help business owners in the SME sweet spot get ready for exit and exit on their terms.
Thank you, Daryl. I really appreciate you inviting me on your podcast today. It's a great time, and hopefully, we can help some of your clients and anybody out there that's looking to exit and make it less scary.